Thank you so much for that last session. We are so pleased to be with you today, CMO Summit, the virtual version. And we hope you're staying safe and having a great week. And we are very excited about the next session. I am James O'Brien, head of production for Custom here at Digiday Media. We're the team that puts together so much of the content that we work on with sponsors. And if we've worked with you, we love it. We look forward to seeing you on your next project. But today we are with one of our favorite sponsors, and that is Mountain. And we're with Haeri, who's the Vice President of Marketing at Mountain. And Ali and I have been talking for almost a half a year now, frequently across the course of several projects about connected television, which is of course Mountain's space these days. And they have been making waves, putting out all sorts of great creative, and then also bringing the power to put great creative to the hands of the people that are going to make it next. The next generation of CTV innovators, very much turning to organizations and outfits like Mountain to find ways to get into the mix and into the stream and reach people where they watch, whatever the screens are that they're using to do so. And there's really never been a moment like this. CTV really, if there was a story in 2021 that defined how marketing is changing and how quickly it's moving, it was the CTV story. And yet what we know is that speed to market and then control over that creative are still pressing challenges and in new ways because of the new channels that our marketing compatriots out there in the advertising world are approaching it. So in this session, Ali, welcome. Let's talk a little bit about the concept of self-sufficiency and why it's got to be top of mind to your way of thinking, I believe, in 2022 and beyond. I think about self-sufficiency as, I guess, like the Merriam-Webster way, right? Like capable of providing for one's own needs. Is that the whole of it to your way of thinking? What are we saying when it comes to self-sufficiency and advertisers as they approach the CTV space?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, James. I appreciate it. Yeah, self-sufficiency, I mean, the way that I kind of think about it in this context is in the same way that an advertiser is self-sufficient in the realm of paid search, paid social, you know, in those instances, an advertiser can just log right in and deploy campaigns. There's no real intermediary. And they have that ability to just kind of bring their ideas to market almost instantly. The fascinating thing about connected television being programmatic is with some platforms, you have that capability of just bringing those ideas immediately to market in that same way that you do with search and social. And so, you know, what we're talking about in terms of user experience is you take your ad, you upload it, you choose the audience, you set the budget, and it's deployed. Hours later, you have a television advertising campaign that's live, which, you know, for a lot of the people who are kind of familiar with what it takes to do linear advertising, it's kind of surreal to be able to see that.
I mean, it's transformative. I love the fact that you bring the word social into that, because we are thinking now about television creative that can happen at virtually approaching the speed of social, and we should dive into the concepts that were of self-sufficiency then on that tactical level. Is speed to market the element that we should be thinking is top of the list when it comes to the self-sufficient TV advertiser? Is it control? Is it dynamic flexibility around the ad content? What do you start with when you say, okay, what you're going to tackle first and become really used to first to become great at self-sufficiency in the CTV space must be this one element? What's the first one on the list?
I think speed really is that it's probably the most interesting aspect of this concept of self-sufficiency for TV advertising, because it's so unlike the alternative of advertising on linear. For a lot of advertisers who are used to doing linear television advertising, it's the opposite. It's an incredibly slow process. It's cumbersome to actually get an ad produced and to either work through an agency or in some instances just work directly to get that placement. I mean, the lead time on that is tremendous. So like when we're talking to advertisers, that's probably the biggest thing that they need to do to sort of reorient themselves around this new opportunity. I'd say from like a creative standpoint, the coolest thing about having this capability has been, you know, a lot of advertisers, they just want to be part of the moment, any sort of like cultural moment. They want to seem topical. And this is probably the most fascinating aspect of CTV, is that it's unlocking that capability. We acquired Maximum Effort, Ryan Reynolds' creative agency, last year, and they have this concept of fast advertising, where they're really good at capturing cultural moments and turning around ads that are related to those cultural moments within a matter of, in some instances, like 48 hours. They shoot the whole ad and it's deployed. It was interesting. One of the reasons why they decided to sort of come on board with Mountain is because they felt like this platform aligned exactly with their vision of how they approach the creative process, which was, we love creating really topical, quick turn advertisements, and a platform like this sort of punctuates it by being able to kind of get the ads in front of our prospects as quickly as possible. And so again, I think the interesting part from like a creative standpoint is knowing that you can get a television ad in front of people almost instantly is it's going to have a tremendous impact, a positive impact on the creative process.
I want to pick up on a thread that I think you're laying down here, and that is that the speed to market, topical cultural advertising, which is really like, that's like the Super Bowl style, like,
Yeah.
goal, right? Like, where you're looking to show people something that comments upon, expands upon, celebrates, honors, does something that is meaningful around what we have experienced in some finite period of time running up to the moment that we first see that ad. We're also talking about the ability to do this frequently and quickly, speed.
Yeah.
What does it, I mean, and so to me, that implies that teams are, if they want to be culturally relevant, topically resonant, they have to make more ads. I mean, they'll have to make more than just the evergreen video that they made for a channel prior to this performance expansion of CTV. What skill sets and tools are necessary to get to that capacity, that running capacity, where you're not only able to react to the moment and do it quickly, but do it many times across the course of a quarter, across the course of a year? Are these skill sets and resources that you're finding marketing teams already commonly have at their disposal, or what are you finding that they need to get to that space?
Yeah, I think again it comes back to that first point of, how are you doing other types of performance marketing? So in the case of social, it's exactly what you were talking about, which is you're likely running multiple social campaigns targeting multiple audiences, and you have multiple creative that's running at the same time. There's no advertiser that's good at what they're doing that's running a single social campaign that's targeting everyone. That's the old school TV approach. But with this benefit of like granular targeting, we sort of diversify our creative and the targeting, and so we run multiple campaigns simultaneously. In terms of skill set, it's back to that same point. If you can understand performance marketing on other channels, then you certainly understand how it will work in this realm. I think another sort of sensibility that's important to kind of bring to the table when you're running campaigns here is understanding audience targeting. Being able to target, say, in-market audiences, which consequently is also another tremendous benefit of running self-serve television. Because normally the alternative with linear TV advertising is you're just trying to make your messaging as like general as possible, so that no matter who it is that's watching a certain program, they could possibly be interested in whatever it is that you're selling. You're kind of freed of that with connected television, because now you can just kind of create creative that's specific to narrow audiences, and that's part of the reason why we've seen such great performance related success with campaigns in this realm, has been advertisers, just like on those other performance channels, are freed up to just focus their messaging on narrow audience segments.
Right on. So let's say I'm running my team, my marketing team, and we've been We've been working with video, of course, across social channels. We've been working with it across owned and operated sites and channels as well, maybe in retailer spaces. But I'm now looking to make this shift. I'm listening to what we're talking about here on the session today, and I'm like, okay, this sounds like speed to market, flexibility. It's freeing up my team to spend more time on the creative. We're creating multiple creative and dynamic creative to appeal to different cohorts and different moments and different calls to action. Where do I start? Like, what are the first things I need to do? I've identified what I need in terms of skill sets and tools. I've identified what the benefits and outcomes are going to be in terms of speed and dynamics and control. But I got to go to my CMO and I got to say, okay, the first things I need to do to sort of reconfigure my team to start working in the self-sufficient way are X, Y, and Z. Like, what are the conversation starters for that team?
The first order of business is, how am I going to source creative? How am I going to be able to do that frequently enough to just keep feeding these campaigns? Because the best performance that we're seeing is from advertisers that are refreshing that creative, say on like a quarterly basis. Some do it on a monthly basis. That's really what's yielding the best performance. And then beyond that, it's really kind of understanding the targeting capabilities, because beyond targeting and choosing your creative, there's not a whole lot else to do in the way of optimization. The platform is just kind of functioning just as it does on all the other major performance marketing platforms. The platform is optimizing and handling the delivery of your campaign. So there's nothing else really for an advertiser to do at that point, but really just focus on their messaging and their creative.
Well, let's think about that messaging and creative too, because I always like to think about benefits, but then also about risks. Risks are exciting too. They're informative, and they're ways that we have to consider our campaigns and projects. And let's take the CMO point of view on this for a moment. Kick some tires and say, okay, my team is talking about self-sufficiency. That sounds pretty good. They're talking about working really fast. That sounds pretty good. But hold on, wait a minute. Like, are there some guardrails here that I need to make sure are being observed? Because if you're making stuff self-sufficiently and fast, where can this go awry, and what kind of parameters and guardrails have you seen smart CTV advertisers put into place to keep themselves on the right side of the messaging and on the right side of that creative output?
I'd say the most obvious one, and we've seen direct examples of this, has been, we talked about one of the advantages being time to market, the speed component of it, which is exciting. Being able to turn around messaging that is acknowledging some sort of active cultural moment. And that too can also be a bit of a danger depending on what that cultural moment may be. News travels fast and things change pretty quickly. And so I'd say, this kind of goes with a lot of other, performance marketing channels where you can kind of instantaneously deploy campaigns, which is, you just need like inherent caution when you're doing campaigns that sort of acknowledge some sort of cultural moment or news of the moment, because as that changes, does that change the tone or the appearance of that messaging? Could something happen differently in the news cycle that all of a sudden changes the perception of your really timely campaign? This has never really been a consideration for TV advertising because it has that built-in delay in linear TV advertising of getting that ad to market. So it's never really been as big of a concern before. But now that it can be deployed so quickly, that's certainly something that people need to kind of consider.
One might even say that what you can hear in the works here is a convergence of the learnings that the social media team has brought to the table for the past half decade or more, and the learning and more than that, and the learnings that the performance team working in the CTV space need to sort of begin to evaluate what you do when you can work so fast and with such cultural specificity. So the coming together of the social media marketer and the TV marketer seems an inevitable outcome as we move forward through 22 and 23. Are we on point if we think that way?
Absolutely, because tactically speaking, the targeting is very similar. You're talking about using common audience data between a lot of those other performance marketing channels like social media, and so you can absolutely take that same sensibility into television advertising. And what's actually kind of interesting about that too is that has a pretty big implication on the creatives and just the campaigns that you're running generally, because another differentiation between running on linear versus running it here is on linear, you're thinking about the placement in terms of what network is this running on, and specifically what show is somebody watching. That's my audience, and does this creative make sense in the context of this show and this network that someone's kind of tuning in. But this is programmatic, and so the placement doesn't really matter, because really the ad is following the user based off of a characteristic of the user. And so that requires kind of, again, a different way of approaching the creative process, knowing that the person who's watching this is likely to be watching, or I should say, all of the people watching this are likely to be watching entirely different things from one another at entirely different times. And so what does the messaging look like there when it's time shifted and people are watching entirely different things? And social media advertisers understand this, because they know that people are going to be seeing their ad in the context of entirely different social media feeds at entirely different times. And so this idea of kind of bringing like the social media sensibility between being familiar with deploying ads very quickly and granular audience targeting, and also measurement on the back end of it, that's totally the right mindset to bring into this.
Right on. Well, we're just about out of time. I want to slip in one more question, though, and that is, it's a proposition with which you can argue, but then also a question that extends from it. I think that one of the things that happens when you think about channels and they emerge, and then new traction is available in them to marketers who figure out how to work with social, how to work with CTV, how to work with audio. And then there's the, I think, inevitable commodification of that channel where everybody's doing it. What do you think is going to be critical as we cruise toward 2023 for the performance-minded CTV video ad creator to continue to punch above weight? What is critical to them to keep them in a place where they're a head above or a neck beyond all the other people that are going to flood the channel as the tools become available and democratized?
I think to that last point, the thing that I would recommend is to, I don't know how these organizations are structured, but I feel like if I was a CMO that was approaching connected television, instinctively it feels right to kind of carry over your in-house, linear TV advertising expertise, and to use that expertise to run CTV advertising. What we've seen from experience is that the more successful advertisers are treating it like a performance marketing channel rather than an extension of their linear TV advertising. What I mean by that is, it's not to say you can't do brand marketing, high thought campaigns on connected television, but it really requires a performance marketing sensibility rather than a traditional TV sensibility. And so to that last point, I think the advertisers that are going to be really successful in this channel and kind of cut through the noise are advertisers who understand the wide variety of audience targeting capabilities that you have. So, suppose you're selling cars, there's a lot of different audience segments that you can target for people who are in market for cars, taking advantage of that, diversifying by running multiple campaigns. A traditional TV advertiser isn't, they've never had the resources to really be thinking about 10 different campaigns simultaneously targeting a wide variety of audiences. Usually budgets are kind of constraining you to just one specific creative at a time and then rinse and repeat. But again, a performance marketer is used to running a variety of campaigns simultaneously, testing all of these campaigns. And finally, measurement. This is something that's quite familiar to performance marketers, but a CTV platform like ours could be measured in the same way that you're measuring all of these other performance marketing channels. So, a performance marketer is going to be used to analyzing a site visit rate and a conversion rate, looking at performance data inside a tool like Google Analytics. This is familiar to them. And I think successful CTV advertisers are going to bring that sensibility to the table. They're going to measure the performance of this channel in that sort of way, take these findings, take these granular targeting capabilities, and apply it to the campaigns that they create, and just kind of really run a sophisticated CTV advertising strategy that's multiple campaigns, running A/B tests, measuring everything. The whole description of this sounds like a performance marketing channel. It doesn't sound like a traditional linear TV campaign. And so I think the advertisers that approach it that way are going to be tremendously successful.
Well, I'm really glad that we've had this conversation today. And I know that it's one of several we're going to have across the course of the first half of this year, at least. You'll be with us on our podcast very shortly. And we have some great new research coming out with your team that will continue to look at creative and what happens with creative refresh and all of the subjects that are going to continue to power what these teams that we're talking about, these hypothetical teams that are out there that are real. I mean, but we're using them as models, and how they make these ads and succeed at them and manage to get ahead and punch above weight this year. So Ali Haeri, Vice President of Marketing at Mountain, that's been our guest here on the program. We're about to go back to our host, and I thank you for joining us at the CMO Summit. Ali, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much.